these are the people who I want to appeal to. Make those little slips. It happens. You have to have a plan to manage your problems effectively. How are you going to do it? Fall off the horse? Jump right back on.
And welcome back, and we're moving into our third segment for today. We're joined by the lovely Jenny Lovell.
Good Jenny is
Of
in.
course, she's a mental health therapist, and this morning in Bruk It Down with Jenny, we're talking about parenting styles.
Yay.
Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning. It's so nice
Good
that
morning, Belize.
you're looking beautiful, loving the colors.
Oh.
Yeah, you got your Friday going on.
And I love the topic that we're talking about, but
course.
I got to start off by saying, Jenny, a lot of people don't like being told how to parent.
I don't want to tell nobody how to parent.
Okay, good, good.
Don't
That's
want
why,
to.
yeah.
But I do want to point out some of the things that we may be doing that we could improve on.
Yeah,
Oh.
of course.
But I definitely don't want to tell people how to parent.
And it's not a good idea for anybody to tell anyone how to parent. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the 1960s, a woman by the name of Bamarin, if we could go, well, let me just look at this right here. This just shows you, if you look at the little thermometer there, the least advantage is like a child's affection goes down based upon your parenting style. And remember that these parenting styles affect children right through adulthood.
Yeah.
It affects everything from their weight to how they make decisions later on in life,
Okay.
right?
And so all of this is based on how you parent.
Right. So like that strict authoritarian parenting, if you're strict and rigid, how it affects the child.
Yeah.
And if you're authoritative, you're nurturing, you're loving, you teach the child how to make decisions.
Of course.
Right. And so we'll go into it right now.
All right.
Okay.
So talking about, are you reactive or are you proactive? Is your parenting style, do you just react to what the child does? Or do you plan ahead and talk to the child and teach the child how to make good decisions? See, we have our children basically till about 18 or 21. And our job as parents is to teach our children how to be good citizens, how to make good decisions, to make solid decisions, think their way through things. And if we are being authoritarian.
What is authoritarian?
Oh, we're going into it.
Okay,
right?
okay, good.
Anyway, in the 60s then, a Bomrind did a research. And in her research, she found out she was looking at 5 different areas. And she says these things carry over into adulthood. Go to the next slide, please. So the dimensions that she looked at were the disciplinary strategies, how warm and nurturing a parent was, how we communicate with our children, and expectations of maturity and control. If we are telling the child what to do, and then all of a sudden, no, we're telling them what to do, we're thinking for them, and then all of a sudden it's time for them to go to college, and then we send them to college. What do you think will happen?
We'll find out in the slides.
I mean, think about it.
Yes.
You have a child that you have groomed, but you haven't taught how to think
Yep.
and how to make good decisions. They get out to college, and guess what? They're free as a bird.
You see, I think sometimes parents think that if I continuously tell them what path to take, they'll instinctively know what the better decision is.
And they say that too.
Yeah.
Raise a child, and when it gets old, it's not going to bend.
Yeah.
And they tell you all these Bible statements, and those are good statements, but you have to follow it up with nurturing and care and teaching.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right?
All right.
So I like to put I want to put pictures that people will remember and associate.
Yeah.
So the authoritarian parent is like Fidel, right? And in my early days, I grew up in Belize, and we have parents who were very strict. And so when I was starting out with my little boy, my thing was, hey, when I say what I say goes. I'm the parent. I make the decisions around here because I pay the bills.
Say what you really said.
Listen to me, little boy. I'm Fidel, and this is Cuba. Okay. When
This
I
is
say
a very
jump,
common parenting style.
when I say jump, you say how high. You don't question what I tell you to do. All right, and it was that very authoritarian. That's the militaristic. That's the military. That's how we raise our kids. You know, you fall in line and you toe the line, right? That's authoritarian. We don't allow the child to question anything. We, it's my way or the highway.
Okay.
So-
Is this a good parenting style?
Well, it's not an effective parenting style.
Okay.
I don't want to say it's not a good
Good,
parenting
yes.
style, because sometimes you might need to do that, but it cannot be it cannot be the way you are all the time with children,
Okay.
because we want to teach them how to make some decisions. We want them to learn how to make good
So
decisions.
let's do some self-analysis here. How do I know if I'm an authoritarian
Yes.
in my household with my children? What are questions I should ask myself?
How do I talk to my child? What kind of do I negotiate? Do I allow the child to negotiate with me? You know, if I tell the child I'm punishing you, I make rules, but those rules I make them and I stick to them. And the child can't question me. A child can't ask me, but mom, what I do forget deserve this, right? If I say
Or
to that
explain
child,
themselves when they get in trouble.
I know we don't give them the opportunity to do that, because an authoritarian parent is a dictator in the home. So if you're a dictator in your home and your children have to toe the line, you might want to check yourself, because you're authoritarian. You're operating mainly from authoritarians.
Okay.
The next one is I call it laissez-faire. or the-
Laissez-faire.
Yeah, that's
or
good.
the uninvolved parent. This is the parent who pretty much is they are not engaged with their children at all.
So other people take care of the child.
Well, they pretty much they don't get into
They don't discipline.
no,
They
they're
don't
friends.
set rules.
Right, they're
They
friends.
don't have
They're-
boundaries.
Nah, they're friends with their kids, right? There are no boundaries. They don't question. Child says, I want to go to Palati Fair. I want to go to this fair. I want to go to a dance. And you say, okay. They don't ask who you're going with, how you're getting there. None of those questions. Very uninvolved.
I've got a question, all right? You know, in situations like this, for myself being a parent, one of the things that we always say is that, you know what, I want to give my child what I didn't get. And I wasn't able to go to a party. I wasn't able to go to Paloti Fair. My child now is at the age that I was when I couldn't go. Now I want to go. Would you say this is the situation that is on them?
It could be. You see, the thing is, we want to throw the baby with the bathwater. Our parents may not have let us go to a lot of things, but they were protecting us, right? So we have to balance. It has to be balance. Sometimes you need to tell the child no.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to say to the child, I don't think it's safe for you to be there at that event. Who's taking?
Or ask the relevant questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you getting home? Can I come pick you up? And make some decisions about time. In this atmosphere right now, you don't want your child being out until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and not knowing how they're getting home.
Is the laissez-faire parenting just being lenient, or is it just, I don't want to say you don't care, but how would you distinguish between perhaps giving in and giving them some joy, something they want to do, versus the uninvolved?
Let's look at the other one, and then I'll come back
Okay,
and we'll
thank you.
explain.
Okay, let's
Here we go.
The permissive parent.
Aha.
The permissive parent, anything goes. Okay. I would want to talk about like that laissez-faire parent. You ever hear about parents who are neglectful?
Yeah.
They would be neglectful.
Yeah.
They
They don't even ask if you eat
they
or
don't-
what you
right.
eat.
Homework. They don't engage with child with. Do you have homework? Let's see what you have for homework. Let's look at that. Have you had supper? I'm
Not
going
show
to
up to
make
school
some.
if they're called on,
And
or,
if
or
the-
get report cards.
If they call and say we need you to come in because something happened with your son, they won't show up. Right? They'll send their sister or send somebody else, and if they don't show up, oh well. So that person is like neglectful. Right? This permissive parent, anything goes. You know, child wants to go out and be out until tomorrow morning. Okay, I'm your friend. I'm your best friend. I'll wear the same clothes you do. We'll go out together.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are parents like that.
Yeah. You want to have your boyfriend stay over at 15? Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of parents right now that would do it. And again, it stems from the fact that their parents were actually the person that we spoke about, who would be like the general in the home. Because their parent was like that, and this I think is the after effect to that child, because my parent didn't allow me. I authoritarian. So because now that I've got kids, I will just go. We'll wear the same thing. My mom didn't do it, and for them it seems cool. Why is this bad, Jenny?
But you see, the thing is, even though the parent was authoritarian, right? I don't have to turn my child loose like a wild bull.
Actually, I don't think, I think sometimes it's because I've been parented that way. I do it with my children. I think there are both ways that it can happen. It's like, my mom made me do anything, so I'll make my child do anything. I turned out okay.
And we hear that a lot.
Maybe.
We hear that a lot. People
That's
say,
what I'll
"Look,
whisper, maybe."
look at how I turned
I get
out.
lash. I turn out okay.
Yeah, you
I
say,
work
"Go,
at 13. I
really?"
turn out okay. I had a child in my teens. I turned out okay. So, and that's where I said it's really hard to talk about parenting styles. And I know you're being very careful because we're not being judgmental on what's right or
not,
wrong.
yeah.
It's just the impact that the different styles have.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we have to remember the way we raise this child is how this child is going to be as an adult.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who can't make good decisions. We have a lot of people in our community, in our country, who back down, they won't speak up because they grew up in homes where they were taught not to speak up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so as adults, they don't know how to speak up.
Yep.
It's really scary because it's a programming. It's programming. You learn at the knee of your parents, and so we're programmed very early.
Yeah.
You know, to just yes, mom, yes, mom, yes, mom, no,
I
mom,
know.
no, sir. And so we if we have leaders who take advantage, that's what's going to happen. People fall along and toe the line because that's how you were programmed.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many things.
There's one more?
Let's go through this.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
So the authoritative. I've used President Obama because even though he was the president of the United States, he made time for his kids. He would tell you he did homework with his kids. He took them out to, he would take them out to different events.
Yes, he did.
He took them to concerts. I mean, he spent time. He made time to be with his children. The authoritative parent will negotiate. If you do something that was really off the wall, that was really bad, right? Or you did something that wasn't safe, I will sit down with you and tell you, okay, there are consequences for your actions. We usually tell the kids, these are the rules, these are the consequences. If you break the rules, you have consequences, right? And so they operate from that mindset of consequences, and they follow through.
Yeah.
The authoritative parent will always follow through.
Let me just take the time here because they're obviously very close in wording.
Yes.
Authoritarian
It's like Cuba.
is disciplinarian.
Disciplinarian,
Dictatorship,
yes.
yes.
They don't discipline, they punish.
Yeah.
Obedience. The ultimate goal is obedience.
Submission.
Yes.
Submission.
Do as I say.
Say, right.
So that's authoritarian.
Yes.
Authoritative
Yes.
is like Obama. It's
Yes.
a negotiating relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so-
And so these kids grow up and they know how to defend themselves, negotiate. They function in a healthy way, healthy way. And that's it. They are, those children aren't punished. They are disciplined. They are taught that what you did was wrong. There are consequences. They follow through. They
Cause
suffer
and
the
effect.
consequences. And they understand that. And that's how we want our children to grow up. So I'm not sitting here telling people what to do
parent,
about their
yes.
parenting. But hopefully you look and you see that there are different ways of parenting.
I like that question though. What do you want your child to be in the future? And use that as your parenting style for
Yes.
now. So if I want my child to be a very assertive leader in the future, then I know I have to nurture it as a parent.
Yeah.
Yes,
And there are certain
absolutely.
things I will have to dedicate myself to I mean, not all the time, we're human.
Yeah.
But as much as possible to be able to make that person.
Right.
Yeah.
You work with your children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You work with them.
So,
Give and take.
Jen, one of the things I think that we always hear you say, and I think it's so important, children are not mini adults. You know, like sometimes we expect them to have the capacity that, you know, you should know better, or you behave the way I expect other adults to behave. How do you help parents understand, or what do parents need to understand about the brain development and the capacity of children? They're smart, they're intelligent, they're capable, but just at
They're
a different
children.
level. Yeah.
They're children.
Yeah.
And the thing is, parents need to remember that
Yeah.
they are children, and that we are guiding them through life, guiding. We're not we're not telling them. Hopefully, I love, and I shared this before.
Yeah.
I love the Khalil Gibran poem. You know, our children are not our children; they're not property.
Yeah.
God gives them to us for us to raise, to nurture, and to train and help to become solid adults.
That's right.
Who are going to contribute to their society, to their community. And as parents, we are the ones that were given the responsibility of guiding them and teaching them the things they need to know, and looking at the different developmental stages and helping the child to negotiate these stages.
Yeah.
Well, this is where I think
their
that
trainer.
this is where I think that especially if you're planning on being a parent, you start to educate yourself in how to be a parent. Now, reason being is because we tend to look at our kids, and I'm guilty of this. I'm a parent. We tend to look at our kids as our prized possession rather than for them to be, their own person. We tend to put in their mind what we want rather than guide them to do the better things. So it's best, if you're planning on having kids, try to find out how to be a better parent first.
Yes.
Okay?
I really
Just for me.
want to recommend people go and Google Khalil Gibran and
What's the name?
read Khalil Gibran. Khalil, Gibran, Gibran,
Yeah.
and it's on children.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful because he says the children come through us,
But not
right?
for
But they're not
for
for us. They're not property.
Wow, that's deep.
They're
Jenny.
not
That's
property.
deep.
We are. They're given to us for us to care for, nurture, and teach,
Yeah.
so that they become healthy, productive citizens of the future.
And I love that you said that you say that, because one of the things that I pride myself on is looking at the natural part of the world. When a cub is born, that cub stays with mom until a certain time, and then he needs to go off and find his pride. You know, stay right there, Jenny. It simply means that you need exactly what you mentioned. Exactly what you mentioned. They're not your property. They're not your prized possession.
Look
You
at
did your
birds.
part.
Look at birds.
Look at
They- they
animals.
would-
All
Most
most
animals.
animals.
All
Most
animals.
animals.
Yeah.
And in
Except
fact,
for Homo sapien.
animals have different times, amount of time that they'll keep their young ones, but at some point they'll let them
They
go.
want, they want them to fly, and
Yes.
they'll push them out of the nest, fly.
Yes.
I want us to get through with the topic though,
Yeah.
so let's go
So
back. This is a
this
great
is just this
Yeah.
right here is just a summary.
Yeah.
So authoritarian, we focus on obedience, punishment over discipline. So we punish. And if you are an authoritarian parent, you will know because you believe in punishing.
Yeah,
Spare the rod and spoil the child.
yeah.
No, I listened to everything you
The
said. Jenny.
authoritative parent creates positive relationships because what their role is, they see their role as being the guide, right? We want to discipline, we want to have consequences for misbehavior, not punishment.
Yeah.
And so the child grows up, right, and learns that if I do the wrong thing, then this will happen. And so they obey laws and they're
Yeah.
good citizens. Permissive parents do not enforce rules. Oh, kids will be kids. I let the kid do what he wants, right? If you're that kind of parent, again, you're going to
How
have
will
problems
your child
in the
know to
future.
follow rules in the future?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And the last one, the uninvolved parent provides little guidance, little nurturing, and very little attention. They are so involved with themselves.
So the kids raise themselves.
Kids raise themselves.
Let me say one thing. I think one of the things as you speak about these different parenting styles, when I encounter children, I can tell some of the parenting styles. I can tell when someone comes from an authoritarian household. The children don't speak, they don't move, they won't do anything unless you explicitly instruct them to stand up and go get a cup of water.
And they cower.
I do the body language because that's the
Yes.
first one of the first, and it scares me because I think I love, for example, on the flip side, and I do a lot when we do school tours here. I see it where we see children who come from authoritative households.
Yeah.
They're assertive.
Yes.
They ask questions.
Yes.
They'll say why.
Yes.
Why would the camera be here and not there? Why, Miss, can I sit on the couch? They'll ask permission.
Right.
But they'll ask for what they want.
Yes.
And it's such a beautiful part because you see, now if I replicate that as an adult in this world, they won't necessarily just sit and take everything that is dictated to them,
right.
as we see in our
Exactly.
society today.
Exactly.
They will speak out. They will say, I don't know if that makes sense. Why? I love
know.
meeting a child who I know is in a household that they're being encouraged. They're not doing everything they want,
Right.
but they're being encouraged to be assertive, and it's
Ask questions.
Yes.
And if I'm getting ready to punish you, ask me, but mom, you need to hear my side.
yeah,
Right.
and let them hear
And
it.
listen to their side.
Yeah.
But one of the things, because I know that we're tight for time, one of the things that I notice, especially in today's day and age, we've got technology on our side, so we become more uninvolved. Reason being is because we just want to have our time of peace, and it tends to go extended hours. We are uninvolved with our kids because they're watching TV or they're watching their tablet. We're doing something else.
Sometimes though, and sometimes there's addiction in that home. Sometimes there's a parent who's substance
Yeah.
addicted, or you might have a parent who has a mental problem, or there may be domestic violence in the home. Those would cause a person to be uninvolved with their kids.
Yeah.
So it's not always just that.
And sometimes they work. I mean, we've heard stories of parents
Yes.
who lock children in their homes and go to work at night,
Oh
and
my gosh.
you know,
Yeah.
it is uninvolved, and it's unfortunate that they feel it's the only choice they have. But
Again, that's the whole thing about losing the extended family, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's another topic.
so, our next slide.
I don't think there's another
Oh,
one.
this is the
This was the
end?
summary, yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So I wanna talk about how does one work on becoming a better parent, but given the stressors. Because when I give you that example of parents who lock in the kids, I know we're very judgmental about it, and every now and again when we do have stories that just turn into awful tragedies, I think to myself, if it's a parent that's not neglectful, who genuinely loves their children and wants to care for them, to be pushed to take that step to ensure their security has to be a heart-wrenching decision. And there are many societal issues. It's not just one issue that leads to that. How do we, on stressful days, be a good parent? How do we, when money is tight, be a good parent? How do we, when we have to work 4 jobs, still be involved and engaged? How do we, when we have 5 children,
No, and we're
still
tired. And we're
still
tired.
manage to provide that positive relationship with our children?
It's hard, but if you think about the future and you think about what can happen, because right now you have 5 mouths to feed, but if you're not paying attention and you're not engaged, you could end up with 6 mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it's really important that parents have to learn to balance.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act, and learning. I don't believe in leaving my children with just anybody, but finding out what family, or other good friends or whatever. You have to work things out with people that you can trust, and you only can do that if you can make friends with people. You're not necessarily safe making friends in church, even. You know,
It's true.
It's
true.
That's a true statement indeed.
it has to be that parents are going to have to figure out how you can do this, because things are very hard. Yes, things are hard. You have people with big families and nobody. But again, you just cannot leave children under 10, under 12 years old by themselves, lock them in and go away. And I know people do it. But then we have the unfortunate things like fires happen, things like that happen. We have no control over.
disasters.
You know, there are.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer. I really don't.
Yeah.
It's a horrible, horrible situation, especially for people who are really, really poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
What about, and we see this one, when you parenticize another child?
Unless I'm saying you really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's so unfortunate.
It's almost, you know, we use the village to raise a child effect, and a lot of people talk about, oh, you know, I'm so responsible because I help raise my younger siblings, and you know, I see it. I see 12-year-olds carrying 2-year-olds, and at
You
night,
say, I'm going to school.
and three more following behind, and what do you say about what this can potentially do to the child in the future?
Well, first of all, the child who is having to be the parent, that child doesn't get to enjoy childhood.
No.
Because that child now has been placed as the adult at home to take care of the younger children.
And the instinct will fall in. Yes.
Right. It's really unfortunate when that happens, but then that child also cannot provide the kind of parental role because the younger ones resent that older child that has to take care of them.
Yeah.
Right. So it no longer is a sibling relationship anymore. It's this one child has been placed above me and might be only a couple years older.
Yeah.
So it's really, I understand it's very hard for parents,
Yeah.
especially in this economic situation that we have. But it's so important not to parentify the oldest child. And sometimes that child might be as young as 10 years, 12 years old and have to take care of other babies. Seriously, the only thing I can really say, and I mean it's going to sound really judgmental, but there's birth control, right? You don't have to have a child every year, every 2 years. Use birth control. Go and go get the things that you need and spread out your having your children.
Yeah.
So you don't do that. I mean, the first one should be the wake up call. You know, and seriously, if people sit down and they start budgeting how much it costs to have a child, and when that child to raise that child, the cost of things they wouldn't have. People would stop
Medical
thinking about having all those children.
These things, yes.
You know, but it's really unfortunate because other children can't do these kinds of things. All they can do is do what a child would do, scream at the other child.
Yeah.
You know, I venture to say that a lot of our households, and especially when we were growing up, I don't know now, but a lot of our households were authoritarian. We had a very militaristic style, the yes ma'am, no ma'am.
Why do you think we're the way we are?
How are we, Jenny? What are you saying?
Why do you think we're the way we are?
I have a very interesting dynamic because I'm the youngest, and it's a very big generation gap, but you know, my mom was authoritarian with the older ones, and I think grew to be more authoritative. And I had other outlets that allowed me to be authoritative as well. And there's a disconnect. I remember growing up, and they're like, we were never allowed to speak like that. And you know, I was very much in tune with the fact that I had rights and I had an opinion but it was not what I'm getting at is it isn't welcomed in our society. I remember being in school and you were just rude because you questioned the teacher.
Yeah.
And you were, you know, obstinate and needed to be out of the class and sit and behave and so I think if I didn't have the support system behind me, I would have very easily fell in line with being just yes ma'am, no ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, no.
So how much can or should the school systems, teachers, complement? Because what I'm saying is, you can spend all your time being authoritative at home, and then your child goes into school, and then they're authoritarian.
This would have to be taught to teachers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because most teachers are going to be authoritarian.
Yeah.
Because she has a classroom with 34, 35 children.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that she is able to use to keep them in line.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole new dynamic we have to teach parents and teachers. Unfortunately, I think what we have mostly in the country are these right here.
Now,
And
I think that's why it's so different because we grew up with authoritarian, and now you're moving into these, and
Yeah, unfortunately. And I think a lot of it has to do with the substance abuse.
Yeah.
Also, but what happens is also we have a lot of teenage pregnancies because nobody's questioning what the children are doing, and the children are having to be adults,
Parents
mini
are
adults.
not involved.
Yeah.
You know, these kids could
Yeah.
just go on out and do what they have to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
Okay, any final advice? You know, I do have one lingering belief, and it may be right or it may be wrong, but I do genuinely believe when you see mothers with their new babies, they love their babies.
Oh, they do,
They
yes.
want the best for
Yes,
those babies.
yes.
They want to have productive citizens in the future,
Yes, they
and
do.
from breastfeeding to, you know, swaddling to nurturing when they cry.
Yeah.
Those are behaviors to me that are indicative that I want the best for this child.
Yes. So we
I
need to
think
just
there is-
grab them.
There is an intent
Yes.
to be a good parent.
Yes,
How do
there
you
is.
continue that process with whatever challenges you may face?
I'm not sure where in the country we're teaching about things like parenting styles.
Okay.
So people have to Google, get on Google. We
Read
have
it.
access.
How to be a better parent or
read,
how to, yes.
read, read and practice. Read and put these things into practice, because authoritative. It's really about nurturing. It's really about spending the time that you had when the baby was small, is continuing to have that involvement in the child's life as they grow up. I talk a lot about having chores. Chores teach a child how to be, you know, to have respect for work.
Of course.
And things like that. So you sit with the child and you tell the child, okay, you have to do chores.
do
So
your
which chores do you want to do? And let them know what the consequences will be if they don't
don't
do the
carry it out.
chores.
Yes,
Right.
of course.
And you're in everything you're doing with this child is basically a negotiation.
Yeah.
I know people out here don't want to hear that, but you negotiate with the
They're
child.
not your property. You should.
One of the
negotiate.
things you said that I think is so important, and that's really one of the lines between these two, is following through with consequences.
Follow through.
Yeah.
You have to follow through.
As hard as it is when they cry because they didn't get the tablet, or they're in a funk because they didn't go to the fair or don't have their phone.
You have to take that phone away.
You have to take it away. You
And,
have
and
to
the thing
take
is
it away.
also is when you have to discipline the child, is to remember to discipline to the age group.
Yeah.
So if the child is only 4 years old, you don't want to take away the phone for 4 days
Yeah.
or 4 years or
Yeah.
4 months, right?
Yeah.
You want to take it away for maybe 4 hours, not
4
even that
hours.
much. That's
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
right? But you make it appropriate to the age. And parenting is you learn, you're going along, you make mistakes, you pick yourself up and you try something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parenting is an ongoing thing for
And
If
you'll
you
find out
see
what
it's
works.
not the impact.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
If there's no impact, then move on to something
What's
else.
try something new.
Try something new.
You know,
Yeah.
it's learn as you go.
And and from a parent's perspective, it's a blessing to have to have kids. It's a blessing to have your blood beat in a vein, your heart beat in a chest. That's a blessing to see what you're like as a young one. Huh?
Okay. I think, what I'm hearing from you is obviously that I think the joys of parenthood is one that people really do enjoy, but it doesn't come without its struggles.
It's struggles.
There are no rules. There are no handbooks. You really figure it out as you go along. Anytime I see parents with toddlers and they're in a tantrum, I remind myself how difficult it is, that job, and try to drown out the crying, because it's hard. It's a tough job that you choose to take on.
It is.
And I'll stress on what Marlene mentioned. There are no handbooks directly to you. Right there and then there might not be. But in today's day and age, you're able to just Google what you need to learn.
Yeah.
Google what you
There's a
feel,
lot of
any
stuff,
way you
yeah.
feel. I'm upset at this particular point because my child did this. You Google that, and
Yeah.
they'll tell you exactly. These are some of the steps you could take to
Suggestions,
get to get out of that funk.
Yeah.
So these are very important things too.
And you don't have to listen to all the things the grandparents tell you about trying to go back to being authoritarian.
Oh,
You
man.
need to lash them. That's why they're not behaving.
I boss you. Look how you come out.
And you laugh at that one.
Everybody got it.
Or mother-in-law, or poor
That's
people.
it. That's how they pick this a style because
Yes. Oh,
How about when they're two different parenting styles? like mom is
Great.
authoritarian and dad is authoritative.
Let me tell you, cow know where weak
Weak fence
day.
day.
So-
Oh my God.
For the people who speak English, the cow knows where the weak fence
This is that. Important.
It's so important that you present a
United.
unified force when that child comes at you, especially if you have a child who is precocious and will ask questions. You can't say, well, mommy, because the child will come to you and go, daddy, mommy said I could do this, you know.
Oh, happened to me.
And if you go against mom, what have you just taught that child? So you have to be a unified front. You all have to talk together. And if mom sets down a rule, you follow through with what mom said, and vice versa.
And again, as a parent, what you're mentioning is very important. I'll tell you why. What that does when somebody is much more laid back, what that does, it creates a rift in the home. Because I said yes, she already asked mom, or the child already asked mom, and mom said, go ask papa. Or, she don't want to say no. And I said, okay, sure. Or mention, no, you're not supposed to do that. The child comes to me and I said, no problem, go ahead. That becomes a rift between the parents. So
That's why you should have asked mom first.
So this is where parents need to talk. So there you go. This is where parents need to have that dialogue.
And not in front of the child.
Right.
Of course not.
Right.
Of course not.
Right. You have to present a unified front. I'm telling you. You don't say, well, daddy can't do that or whatever. You talk together about it. If the child comes and asks you, don't say yes until you've discussed it with mom. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Because they know, those little kids are smart. They know. And they will play you off against the other. They will
know what?
play you off.
So I think this is so important.
Yes, it is.
I know you didn't want to say which one is better, but I'm lenient towards the authoritative. How do you move if you I'm watching this today and I realize, and I always sense that parents, when they're very strict with their children, do have a sense of guilt. Like they're proud that their child is well behaved, but a little guilty that they have to be so rigid.
Yes.
If I want to change my parenting style or perhaps adapt some new ways, what's some advice? In this negotiation thing is not something we're comfortable talking about. Like you don't ask a child, what do you think your consequences should be? That's not like.
But that's important.
No. I mean, like it's. I know that. I know. And I think I've seen so many amazing things with my sister and her daughter and how it works. But I think that it's a new concept for most of us.
Let me just share something with you.
Yes.
In schools, when I work with teachers,
Yeah.
I'll say to the teachers, when your first day of school, you get the kids to make the rules. Let them make the rules. And they will. And they are harsh on themselves.
I could imagine.
They are harsh.
Yeah.
You let them make the rules, and then you tell them what should be the consequences if you
I've seen this.
if you do not abide by the rules, right? And they put harsh consequences
On themselves.
on themselves.
Yeah.
You tell them, okay, so will we live with this for the entire semester? Okay, good. You number those rules. They will call each other on those rules when they don't follow through. All right? It's so important that you have consequences and remember to follow through.
Yeah.
If you don't, they're not worth a penny. They're not worth the paper they're written on.
Yeah.
The
You
weak fence.
absolutely have to follow through. And I engage the kids in it. You want to set chores? Engage the kids. What chores do you all want? And if you don't do your chores by 9 o'clock, or you go to bed without doing your chores, what should the consequences be? That's negotiation.
It is.
That's simple
How does that help you as
negotiation.
an adult?
When you-
Having this type of interaction, what type of adult will that make in the future?
That's an adult who is going to learn how to negotiate.
Negotiate.
They're not going to get angry and fly off the handle. They're not going to be out there in fights or pulling guns because they can't talk to each other. These are kids who learn how to question things, and if they don't agree, they will question. And you want a child who questions, you want that.
Yeah, they know
we
how to
don't
react.
want people who are doing what we're doing right now. We don't question anything in this country.
That is true.
We don't. We
Well-
just yes, mom.
We have a lot of yes, mom, yes,
Sounds
sir.
like a particular period in time, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's how we were raised.
Yes.
We were beaten down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were told this is how things are.
Yeah.
We're Fidel and you're in Cuba.
Yeah, you're in Cuba.
Yeah.
I just go back to it because I think that when we see kids, like I started the conversation saying people are really uncomfortable when you talk about their parenting style. You know, I could imagine it's
I'm
just
not talking about your parenting style.
Yeah, we're not criticizing. But like I was speaking about the children who ask questions, who are assertive. You know, when I see it, I love it.
I love it too.
I just it makes me happy.
Yes.
But I realize I'm outside of the norm because
if-
people really do want to see the well-behaved, sit in the corner child. You know, like how dare a 3-year-old in church get up and want to go towards the priest?
The priest, like that's a no-no. We were taught that.
What? How would you not expect that? I'm more worried when the 3-year-old sits there with their hand in a lap the whole while. So I'm saying as outsiders looking in, you know, we're very judgmental when we see a child who looks at their mom and said, "But I don't want to do that," or "I don't want to go right now." You know, what do you, and because you have the pressure of societal norms and you may feel embarrassed because your child is speaking against you at that time, how do you reinforce the parents that they're doing the right thing?
They are doing the right thing. If your child is comfortable enough to question something that you are doing or something that you may have said, that's okay.
Yeah.
Be okay with it. Be okay with it. Don't worry about what other people think or what other people say to you.
Yeah.
Because yes, the mother-in-laws and the sisters-in-law are going to make comments about you're spoiling your child, and you need to not spare the rod, right? But you don't want a child that's beaten down. You want a child that's going to question you.
Well, there's a why factor. There's a why phase for a child. Why?
Yeah.
You know, they'll ask you why for everything.
That's 2 years old. That's a 2-year-old, 3-year-old who will drive you absolutely crazy asking you all the whys. And they will take you right down to the...
You ask them, why you ask this question, why?
Ultimately.
And you see, that's the authoritarian.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I said so.
Yeah.
You do it because I said so.
Yeah.
And it's not giving the child the opportunities to do what children do. Yes, yes.
Their little minds trying to figure out how the world
the
works.
brain to grow. This is the age when we want them to learn and be content asking the questions.
Yeah.
We want that.
Yeah.
We want to nurture that. Yeah, I know people are sitting out here going, that woman's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it in my head.
But honestly, we can make a change in the way people behave in this country.
I just keep on going back to what we see in adults today. And I think, you know, if you look in your workplaces, and I think if you think of the people who are really against things but just can't say anything, struggling but can't say anything, have ideas but are so scared to say it because it's not their place, or solutions.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens, and you don't want
kill
want that for
creativity.
your child.
Yeah, we do.
We kill creativity when we don't nurture, and it comes back to nurturing. If you the same baby that you love and you carried and you're kissing and loving, you want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
You want to allow them to express creativity, and it becomes just a part of who they are.
Yeah.
And we do that with the nurturing.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not spoiling the child because you allow the child to question and to learn by expressing in their environment and exploring their environment and asking you questions. And if it's a point where the child and the child won't go out of line. It really won't, because you will be guiding the child. It's not like you leave the child there to be rude.
It's not uninvolved or permissive.
Right.
Yeah.
You're very, very involved.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, this is a very eye-opening conversation for
Loved
today.
it.
We really appreciate it. I think,
My
as
pleasure.
I said earlier, and I think we all agree, people want the best for their children.
Yes, we do.
It's just learning
We all
the
do.
tools how to do so.
Right.
So thank you for coming
Thank
in
you
and
so very
sharing
much. I love the topic like
Yeah.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Love it, love it.
that. All right, we're going to go ahead and take our final break. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up. So stay tuned.
These are the people who I want to appeal to. Make those little slips. It happens. You have to have a plan to manage your problems effectively. How are you going to do it? Fall off the horse? Jump right back on.